to share with you a review of our Labor Day weekend experience at Lake McConaughy, Nebraska, which is about a 4-hour drive from Denver. And we stayed there just a few weeks ago. And so I'm going to give you a little background about the lake itself, where to stay, some tips for being on the lake, some fun things we learned about, some things we learned that we wish we had known before we went, and give you our overall summary at the end. So here we go. All right, so the first thing to know about Lake McConaughy is that it's a man-made lake that was built as the result of a dam that was made in the 1980s. It's about 20 miles long, and at its widest area is about 4 miles wide. So it's pretty substantial. It's the largest lake in the area, so it attracts people from all over Nebraska and Colorado and the surrounding areas to come to it, to boat, to fish, to hang out at the shore, and have a good time. Your options for where to stay include camping and RV camping right on the lake shore if you want, which is really fun. We saw a lot of people right next to the water with their RVs, and it looked like some folks had all planned to come together and sort of circled up their RVs together, and so they were all hanging out and having a good time. And that looked like a lot of fun. We chose to rent a house because there was going to be 8 of us. There was going to be 4 adults and 4 kids. So we just wanted a little bit of kind of a quieter space where if we needed to put the kids down to sleep, we were hoping that it would be a little more peaceful. And so we looked on Airbnb because we use Airbnb all the time. We've used it in different countries around the world, and it's always been pretty reliable for us. So we booked our house a few months ago before we left, and there was no pictures, at least to my recollection, of the outside of the house, and the inside looked okay. We booked in June, and so because it was Labor Day weekend, a lot of things were already filled up. But we learned later that approximately 70% of the homes in Lake McConaughy are manufactured, or what some call trailer homes, single wides and double wides. So if that's not something that's a big deal to you, just know that those are the homes. If you see a house, it may not be sort of the traditional single family home that you might be thinking of. So ours was a trailer, and I wish we had known that ahead of time because we were paying a chunk of change per night, and so we were under the impression that it was going to be a nicer place to stay. The other thing that we learned is that the northern part of the lake has railroad tracks that run along it, and there was some mention in the Airbnb write-up about a train, but it wasn't very clear what that really meant. Well, what it meant was that there was a train or trains that ran 24/7, even on the holidays, and there was a crossing close to our house, and so that meant that the train horn would honk multiple times every time it went by our house. And unfortunately, during the day, the trains went by every 10 or 15 minutes. At night, they went every 20 to 30 minutes all night long. So since you're in this double wide trailer, there's not a lot of insulation. You're hearing a very loud train horn every 20 to 30 minutes all night while you're trying to sleep. So that was a bummer. I was really upset that that wasn't clear in the write-up for the Airbnb. When we contacted them, it just so happened that about an hour or 2 later, the description online changed to say more about the house itself and the train situation. So funny that that should happen. But lesson learned, the northern part of the lake has trains. So really, I think for some peace and quiet, we probably should have just RV camped on the side of the lake, but so it goes. When you're thinking about booking a weekend away, just know that there's not a lot of dining options or grocery shopping options around the lake. So there is a grocery store that we found, but the selection was super limited. We were trying to find ketchup, and they didn't have any ketchup. And we did eat at one restaurant that was by the Lemoyne Bay, which was one of the areas of boat ramps that you could drive your truck down with your boat trailer. which is nice because there's actually not a ton of boat ramps around. So if you don't mind driving in the water, do that. But if you want a ramp, you're gonna have to search a little bit. So anyways, there's also a restaurant there at Lemoyne Bay, and it was good, but that was pretty much our only option that we saw. So definitely pack all the food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you know, beverages that you may want, because you're going to have to be doing a lot of cooking in your weekend, which is fine. It would just know that going into it. The other thing to know is that the lake itself is really fun. The kids loved it because it wasn't that cold, and we would pull up to, you know, different beach shore areas around the lake, and the kids would play, shoot water guns at each other and at us. They did a little yoga at one point. So it was really a good time, and because the lake is so big, it never really feels crowded, and you didn't feel like, oh my gosh, another boat's gonna, you know, come super close to us. It didn't feel like that at all because it was such a spacious area. But it is a dry lake, so it is designated as a dry lake, which means you should not have glass containers or alcohol on the lake. Now, I read online that lots of people use water bottles and fill them with mixed drinks or beers or whatever. The other thing to know is that if you're a golfer, pack your clubs, because there's an 18-hole course on the southern part of the lake that one of our friends golfed on in the morning. It was kind of overcast, so we didn't want to go out to the lake. And he had a blast. He said it was affordable, it was fun, the course was beautiful. So definitely that was a fun surprise. So bring your clubs if that's your thing. And overall, have fun at Lake McConaughy. There is a lot of good times to be had there, but just be mindful of where you're gonna stay and know about the trains and know about the dining options. But overall, it was a fun Labor Day weekend. It's always fun with friends. So if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave them below, and subscribe for more adventures in the future. Thank you.